what would be your biggest tips towards an intermediate surfer that's trying to just be a better power surfer? Obviously riding a step up sounds like that's one piece of advice, but what else would you recommend?
Yeah, I would say every session, and I think the best thing to progression, but just like keeping things simple to like basics, because everything just stems from your basics, right? It's pretty simple. If you know how to stay low and compress to your board, and you can properly do some cutbacks, stay low on your bottom turns, it's just going to just level everything up, right? So everything's just going to become like basics to like just advanced basics. It's just everything just gets a little bit more crisp and defined. But I would say if the waves, I feel like you could always work on like cutbacks. It's kind of like that move where it's just like, but like you could always just work on your cutbacks, whether it's like 1 foot to like 4-6 feet, however big. I would say it's super important to go out with like a purpose of like how you want to get better. You know what I mean? A lot of the times when people are trying to, I would say in my opinion, and I've done this for a really long time, is when people are trying to get better, they really just go out with like no direction. They kind of just go out and surf, and that's fun. You know what I mean? I was talking to my friend about this, my good friend Kiki Makahanaloa, that's his name. And he's a black belt jiu-jitsu, but he uses this principle for everything. He's a good surfer, but he was telling me this, but when you're surfing, you go out with a purpose, you go out with a plan, and that's how you get better. You know what I mean? So if the waves are waist high and if you want to be a better power surfer and the waves are waist high, go out with the plan in your head of like, okay, I'm going to stay low and compressed today, and I'm going to make sure that I'm doing clean wraps, And I would say it's really important to get out of the habit of sometimes when you dig your rail, people just tend to jump off. I think we all do this. You'll do a turn and you'll just kind of like, you'll flop yourself off. Yeah, I would say get in the habit of whether you're kind of digging your rail or not, but just make sure that you're always trying to finish your waves. Finish your waves, stay low and compressed, and just work on your rail line. Cutbacks, Lead with your...
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you emphasize staying low. That's something that I think about all the time, especially watching Curran. You look at Curran, he's just like so low all the time, and obviously all the top pros. But I think when you look at a lot of surfers, they're so upright, and then they're not. And if you're not compressed, then you're not going to be able to create any power from it because you're not starting in that position, right? So I definitely agree with the compression. It makes so much sense. But it's so hard to like, you don't even realize how not compressed you are until you see footage of yourself, right? Basically. Yeah,
no, exactly. You don't realize how not compressed you are. The only time you're really getting extended too is like when you're kind of opening up your hips throughout like a carve or a turn, and then when you're finishing your turn, it's like you want to make sure you're getting back down compressed. But also like it really just comes with like a lot of repetition in the ocean, because if you don't really know how to distribute your weight on your board, if you're just getting low, you could be putting too much weight like just on your board and you'll just bog. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I feel like that's a very like, it'd almost be like kind of hard to explain like what I mean by that, but it's like staying low through turns, especially on small waves. And I just like had a video I was talking about this, but when you're surfing small waves, what it really is just like consistently surfing smaller waves, and you'll develop a way of surfing lighter. You'll be able to surf lighter because you're starting to realize where you need to push and where you need to like let go, when like driving manual, right? So like if you're staying really compressed, but you don't really spend a lot of time surfing small waves, you're just trying to stay low, it's probably really likely you're just going to kind of like bog out the wave, So it's knowing when to stay compressed at the right time, like on the wave, so you can fit that energy, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it totally makes sense. I mean, I think, I made a video on this, and I think about Chloe Andino when he's surfing like 1 foot Huntington. Like he was so so low and crouched over. But you know, I always thought his surfing style looked a little bit awkward, a little bit, until I was like really studying. And I was like, because he compresses so low onto his front foot to drive speed down the wave as he's going down the wave, so that he could then extend as he was going up. And then that's why he's just like a little whirly top in his tiny waves, you know? And
Yeah.
you're totally right. It's about the compression and then the extension. But if you don't compress, then you're not going to be able to extend. And I think like I see a lot of surfers and they just kind of pop up and they're just kind of straight and they're just going there, you know? And I think, you know, it's both though. I think you're absolutely right. It's not just compressing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I totally agree. And I also agree what you mean with Kolohe, because I've seen that too. I think the best surfer to watch in regards to this topic, to get a really good idea, is Mick Fanning. If you ever watch Mick Fanning, he's low at all the right time, but he's one of those guys. He's one of the only surfers that you'll see on tour and just in general. He rarely pumps. Everything is literally top to bottom. Like, watch him surf. Like, he'll pump when he needs to, but if there's a wave that just has an open face, he doesn't ever second pump on the bottom. He never goes like 1, 2. Everything is literally compressed, bottom turn,
flow.
snap.
Yeah.
And that is I think that's a different type of level too that is just beautiful to watch. He's one of those guys that's a prime example of how you should look when you're getting compressed and